A lonely millionaire meets a poor girl asking for milk for her baby brother. In a sweet voice, she promises, "I'll pay for it when I grow up." Surprised by her dignity, he decides to follow her and discovers that they live under a bridge with their sick mother. What this man does next completely changes the fate of that little family, and his own too. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching us from. We'll keep going. The Manhattan skyline glittered against the night sky, a testament to wealth and ambition. Yet from the top floor of the Collingsworth Tower, Ethan Collingsworth viewed it all with empty eyes. At 37, he owned one of New York's most prestigious investment firms, with an empire spanning continents. His penthouse apartment occupied the entire top floor of the building, bearing his family name, every inch designed by the world's most sought-after decorator. Tonight, like most nights, Ethan stood alone. "Mr. Collingsworth?" His assistant's voice interrupted his thoughts. "The quarterly reports are ready for your review, and Mr. Reynolds asked me to remind you about tomorrow's board meeting." Ethan nodded without turning. "Leave them on my desk." "Will you be needing anything else tonight, sir?" "No, Diane. You can go home." The sound of his assistant's retreating footsteps faded, leaving him once again in perfect silence. Ethan loosened his tie and poured himself a glass of 30-year-old scotch. The amber liquid cost more than what most people earned in a month, yet it brought him no pleasure. Nothing did anymore. He walked to his desk, fingers trailing over the cold marble surface. Another day, another billion-dollar deal, another empty night in an empty life. The business magazines called him Wall Street's Ice King. Brilliant, but cold, ruthless in the boardroom, and entirely focused on profit margins. What the magazines didn't know was how accurately the nickname described his personal life as well. Ethan's childhood had been privileged but sterile. The only child of William and Eleanor Collingsworth, he had grown up in mansions staffed by nannies who addressed him as young sir. His parents, internationally renowned business moguls, had been perpetually traveling, building their empire, while their son was raised by a rotating staff of professionals. His father's rare appearances consisted mainly of stern lectures about legacy and responsibility. His mother's affection came in the form of expensive gifts, shipped from Milan or Paris, never delivered in person. By the time he reached adulthood, Ethan had internalized one central truth. Relationships were transactional. People approached him for what he could provide, money, influence, or status. He had built his walls accordingly, becoming exactly what was expected of him. Calculating, detached, and supremely successful. His phone vibrated with a text from Victor Reynolds, his ambitious business partner. "You missed the Peterson meeting. Again, board members are talking. Need to discuss tomorrow." Ethan ignored it. Victor had been circling like a shark lately, making thinly veiled suggestions that perhaps Ethan was losing his edge. Maybe he was right. Even work, which had once consumed him completely, now felt hollow and meaningless. He grabbed his coat and headed for the private elevator. The air in the penthouse was suddenly suffocating, and he needed to walk, to breathe, to do something to silence the emptiness echoing inside him. "Going out, Mr. Collingsworth?" asked James, the night doorman. "Just for a walk. It's quite cold tonight, sir. Should I call your driver?" "No, I need the air." The December wind hit his face like tiny needles, but Ethan welcomed the sensation. At least it was something real. He walked without direction, his Italian leather shoes inappropriate for the slushy sidewalks. He passed the glittering storefronts of Fifth Avenue, windows displaying luxury items that he could purchase without a second thought. None of it meant anything. After nearly an hour of aimless walking, Ethan found himself in a less polished neighborhood. The towering skyscrapers had given way to older buildings, the designer boutiques replaced by small family-owned businesses. He was about to turn back when he noticed a small grocery store still open despite the late hour. Something made him pause. Through the brightly lit window, he saw a small girl, no more than 7 or 8 years old, standing at the counter. She wore a thin jacket much too large for her frame and worn sneakers with holes at the toes. In her arms, she cradled a bundle that Ethan realized with a start was a baby wrapped in a tattered blanket. "Please, sir," he heard her say as the door opened and another customer exited. "I just need some milk for my brother. I promise I'll pay you back when I grow up." The store owner, an older man with kind eyes, looked conflicted. "Sweetheart, I gave you food yesterday. I can't keep—" "I know," the girl interrupted, her voice small but dignified. "And I'm really thankful. But Noah hasn't eaten since morning, and he's so little." Something about the girl's demeanor, the quiet dignity, the responsibility she carried on such small shoulders, pierced through Ethan's carefully constructed walls. Before he could think, he found himself entering the store. "I'll pay for whatever she needs," he said, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. The girl turned, startled by his appearance. Up close, Ethan could see her more clearly. Thin face, large expressive eyes, and light brown hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Despite her obvious poverty, there was something extraordinarily composed about her. "Thank you, mister. But my mom says we shouldn't take things from strangers." The statement, so proper and cautious from someone so clearly in need, caught Ethan off guard. "Where is your mother?" he asked. The girl hesitated before answering. "She's sick. She can't walk right now." The store owner gave Ethan a knowing look but said nothing. "What's your name?" Ethan asked the girl. "Emma," she replied, shifting the baby in her arms. "And this is Noah." "I'm Ethan," he said, kneeling to her level. "Emma, would it be okay if I buy some groceries for you and Noah? And for your mom too?" Emma studied him carefully, as if assessing his character. Finally, she nodded. "That would be really nice of you." For the next 20 minutes, Ethan filled a shopping cart with essentials. Milk, bread, fruit, baby formula, diapers, and anything else he could think of that the family might need. Emma watched with wide eyes, occasionally suggesting practical items. "Mom likes this soup when she's sick," or "Noah needs the sensitive skin wipes because regular ones give him a rash." As they checked out, Emma's face grew worried. "That's a lot of money," she whispered. "It's okay," Ethan assured her, handing his platinum card to the cashier. "How will I pay you back?" she asked seriously. Something warm and unfamiliar stirred in Ethan's chest. "You don't have to. Everyone always wants something back," Emma said with the weary wisdom of someone far beyond her years. Ethan helped carry the bags outside, but when he offered to walk her home, Emma grew hesitant. "I can go by myself," she insisted. "I do it all the time." "It's late and dark," Ethan pointed out. "I just want to make sure you get home safely." Emma bit her lip, then nodded reluctantly. "Okay, but you can just walk behind me. Don't tell anyone where we live." Curious and increasingly concerned, Ethan agreed. They walked several blocks, Emma leading the way with surprising confidence for a child her age. The neighborhood grew progressively shabbier until they reached a small park bordering the East River. "I can go from here," Emma said firmly, attempting to take all the bags. "Emma, where exactly do you live?" Ethan asked, not releasing the groceries. She looked down at her worn sneakers. "I can't tell you." A terrible suspicion formed in Ethan's mind. "Can I walk you all the way? I promise I won't tell anyone." After a long moment, Emma nodded. She led him through the darkened park, down a sloping embankment and under a bridge. There, partially hidden from view, was a makeshift shelter constructed of cardboard, plastic tarps, and discarded materials. "Mom?" Emma called softly. "I'm back. I brought food." A thin woman emerged from the shelter, her face immediately alarmed, at the sight of Ethan standing behind her daughter. Despite her obvious illness, hollow cheeks, pale complexion, and the rattling cough she tried to suppress, there was a fierce protectiveness in her stance. "Emma, who is this?" she demanded, pulling her daughter close. "His name is Ethan," Emma explained. "He bought us food, Mom, a lot of food and medicine for you and diapers for Noah." The woman's eyes, the same expressive shape as her daughter's, narrowed with suspicion. "Why?" she asked, addressing Ethan directly. "What do you want from us?" The question hung in the cold night air, as Ethan Collingsworth, master of billion-dollar negotiations, found himself at a complete loss for words. "I don't want anything," Ethan said, the words feeling foreign in his mouth. Throughout his life, every interaction had been a transaction. Even his charitable donations were strategic tax write-offs, carefully calculated to benefit his public image. The woman, Emma's mother, didn't look convinced. "Everyone wants something," she said, echoing her daughter's earlier sentiment. Her voice was hoarse, interrupted by a deep, concerning cough she tried to suppress. "Mom, he's nice," Emma insisted, pulling at her mother's thin jacket. "Look, he got soup and medicine for your cough." The woman's eyes darted between her daughter's hopeful face and Ethan's expensive coat. "Thank you for the food," she finally said, her tone making it clear that his assistance ended there. "Emma, bring everything inside." "Let me help carry it," Ethan offered, stepping forward. "No." The word was sharp, definitive. "We'll manage." Emma looked apologetically at Ethan as she began gathering bags. The baby in the makeshift shelter started crying, a weak, pitiful sound that seemed to echo under the bridge. "That's Noah," Emma explained unnecessarily. "He's hungry." The woman's shoulders slumped slightly at the sound of her infant's cries. Pride warred with necessity on her face. "Emma, take the formula first," she instructed. Ethan stood awkwardly as Emma darted past him toward their shelter. The December wind picked up, carrying with it the first few snowflakes of what the weather report had warned would be a significant storm. "A storm's coming," he said, looking at the darkening sky. "You can't stay here." The woman laughed bitterly. "We've survived worse. There are shelters." "No shelters," she cut him off. "They'd separate us, or worse." She didn't elaborate on worse, but her expression spoke volumes. Ethan found himself at a rare loss. In his world, problems were solved with money or power, both of which he had in abundance. But the wariness in this woman's eyes told him neither would work here. "I'm Sarah," she finally offered, perhaps feeling she owed him at least that much for the groceries. "Thank you for helping Emma. She shouldn't have to do this, but..." She trailed off, another coughing fit overtaking her. "You need medical attention," Ethan said, concern overriding his usual detachment. "What I need is for my daughter not to have to beg for food," Sarah replied when she could speak again. "What I need is a job that doesn't throw me away the minute they learn I have 2 children and no permanent address." From inside the shelter, Emma called out, "Mom, Noah stopped crying. He really likes the formula." A ghost of a smile crossed Sarah's face, softening her features. For a moment, Ethan could see the woman she might have been without the weight of her circumstances, beautiful, vibrant, strong. "You should go," Sarah told him, turning away. "This isn't your problem." Ethan nodded, knowing he was being dismissed. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet, extracting several $100 bills. "Take this," he said, extending the money. "For emergencies." Sarah stared at the cash but didn't move to take it. "No," she said firmly. "The food was enough." "Your children." "My children need to see that their mother has dignity," she interrupted, "even if it's the only thing I have left." Ethan reluctantly returned the money to his wallet. "At least take my card," he said, retrieving a business card. "If you need anything, food, medicine, anything at all, call this number." Sarah hesitated, then took the card, studying the embossed name and title. "Collingsworth Investments," she read aloud, her eyebrows rising slightly. "You're Ethan Collingsworth? The Ethan Collingsworth?" He nodded, uncomfortable with the recognition. His face occasionally appeared in business publications and local news, though he avoided publicity when possible. "Well, Mr. Collingsworth," Sarah said, her voice taking on a new edge. "Now I definitely know you want something. Men like you don't wander into grocery stores in this neighborhood by accident." "I was just walking," Ethan said defensively. "I saw Emma and..." He struggled to articulate what had drawn him to help. "I just wanted to help." "The billionaire with a conscience," Sarah remarked sarcastically. "How novel." Emma emerged from the shelter, her expression brightening when she saw Ethan was still there. "Noah's happy now," she reported. "Do you want to see him? He's really cute when he's not crying." Before Ethan could respond, Sarah interjected, "Mr. Collingsworth was just leaving, sweetie." "Oh." Emma's face fell. "Will you come back sometime?" The hopeful question caught Ethan off guard. When was the last time anyone had actually wanted him to return, not for what he could provide, but simply for his presence. "Emma, go inside," Sarah instructed firmly. With a small wave, Emma disappeared back into the shelter, leaving Ethan and Sarah alone again. "Don't come back," Sarah said quietly. "We're not a charity case for you to feel good about. We're not your redemption story. That's not what I—" "Goodbye, Mr. Collingsworth." She turned and followed her daughter into the shelter, effectively ending the conversation. Ethan stood. For a moment longer, snow beginning to accumulate on his shoulders. Finally, he turned and walked back toward the glittering skyline of Manhattan, his mind troubled in a way it hadn't been in years. The next morning, Ethan sat in his corner office, staring unseeing at the quarterly reports. The numbers that had once been his sole focus now seemed meaningless compared to the memory of Emma's hopeful face and Sarah's fierce dignity. "You look like hell," Victor Reynolds remarked, striding into the office without knocking. At 42, Victor was everything. A successful wall. Street executives should be sharply dressed, aggressively confident, and utterly ruthless. "Good morning to you too," Ethan replied dryly. Victor settled into the chair across from Ethan's desk. "The board is concerned," he said without preamble. "You've missed 3 major meetings in the past month. The Peterson account almost walked because you weren't there to hold their hands. Johnson handled it." "Johnson isn't you." Victor leaned forward. "What's going on, Ethan? You've been distracted, unfocused. This isn't like you." Ethan considered telling Victor about the family under the bridge, but immediately dismissed the idea. Victor would see it as weakness, something to exploit. Their partnership had always been more competitive than collaborative. "I'm fine," Ethan said instead, "just reassessing some priorities." Victor's eyes narrowed. "Priorities? Our priority is making money, period. That's what we do, Ethan. That's what we've always done." "I'm aware of that." "Are you?" Victor stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "Because the board is starting to wonder if maybe you've lost your edge. The Ethan Collingsworth I know wouldn't let anything interfere with business." After Victor left, Ethan swiveled his chair to face the window. The snow that had begun the previous night was now falling heavily, blanketing the city in white. His thoughts returned to Sarah and her children, huddled under that bridge in this weather. Against his better judgment, Ethan found himself leaving the office early, telling his assistant he had an important appointment. Instead of heading home, he directed his driver to the grocery store from the previous night. Inside, he filled cart after cart with supplies: more food, warmer blankets, heavy-duty tarps, portable heaters, winter clothing in what he guessed were the right sizes. The store owner watched with curious eyes, but asked no questions as Ethan paid. "Delivery to the same place as last night," Ethan told the store owner, pressing several $100 bills into the man's hand. "As soon as possible, please." "Of course, Mr. Collingsworth." Back in his car, Ethan hesitated. Sarah had explicitly told him not to return, and he suspected his delivery would not be well received. Still, he couldn't simply do nothing, not with the snow falling and temperatures dropping. "Where to, sir?" his driver asked. Ethan made a decision. Riverside Park, near the 79th Street entrance. When they arrived, Ethan instructed his driver to wait. Bundled in his cashmere coat, he made his way through the accumulating snow toward the bridge where Sarah and her children had made their shelter. He stayed hidden, watching from a distance as the grocery store's delivery van arrived. The driver carried load after load down to the makeshift shelter. Sarah emerged, her expression a mixture of suspicion and disbelief. She spoke with the delivery driver, who handed her a note. Ethan watched as she read it, her face unreadable. From this distance, Emma appeared beside her mother, bouncing with excitement at the sight of the supplies. Even from afar, Ethan could see her delight as she examined a new winter coat, holding it up to show her mother. Sarah's response was impossible to discern, but she eventually began helping the driver unload the deliveries. When everything had been transferred to their shelter, Sarah stood for a long moment, looking around as if searching for someone. For him, Ethan realized, he remained hidden, torn between the urge to approach and the certainty that his presence would not be welcome. Finally, Sarah turned and disappeared back into the shelter with Emma. As Ethan walked back to his waiting car, his phone buzzed with messages from Victor about an emergency board meeting. For the first time in his career, Ethan found he didn't care. Something had awakened inside him, a feeling he couldn't identify but that pulled him inexorably back toward the bridge and the family struggling to survive beneath it. "Back to the office, sir?" his driver asked as Ethan slid into the warmth of the car. "No," Ethan replied, surprising himself. "Not today." For 3 days, Ethan kept his distance. He monitored the weather reports obsessively, relieved when the snowstorm finally passed. Each morning, he found himself staring out his office window toward the East River, wondering if Sarah and her children were warm enough, if they had enough to eat. "The Thompson deal is falling apart," Victor announced, barging into Ethan's office unannounced as had become his habit. "They want reassurance from you personally. Not Johnson, not me. You." Ethan nodded absently. "Schedule a dinner." Victor slammed his palm on the desk. "I already did, last night. You didn't show up." That got Ethan's attention. He had no recollection of any dinner being scheduled. "You never told me about it." "I sent 3 emails and 2 texts. Victor's face was tight with barely controlled anger. "What the hell is going on with you? You're never here, even when you're physically in the office. The board is meeting tomorrow to discuss your situation." "My situation?" "Your apparent disinterest in running the company you built." Victor leaned forward. "Look, whatever midlife crisis you're having, get over it fast, or you'll find yourself voted out faster than you can say golden parachute." After Victor stormed out, Ethan checked his phone. Indeed, there were multiple missed messages about the Thompson dinner. He'd been so preoccupied that he hadn't even noticed them. His assistant poked her head in. "Mr. Collingsworth, the caterers need final approval for the Christmas party on Friday." Christmas. Ethan had completely forgotten about the lavish annual party he hosted for clients and employees. "Just approve whatever they suggest," he said dismissively. Left alone again, Ethan found his thoughts drifting back to Emma. What did Christmas look like for a child living under a bridge? Did Sarah somehow manage to create some semblance of normalcy for her children despite their circumstances? Before he could talk himself out of it, Ethan grabbed his coat and left the office. His driver was surprised to see him in the middle of the day, but asked no questions as Ethan directed him to the now familiar grocery store. This time, Ethan purchased not just necessities, but small luxuries as well. Chocolates, a plush teddy, bear for Emma, baby toys for Noah. He added children's books, colored pencils, and drawing paper, remembering how Emma had mentioned liking art in school before they'd lost their apartment. As he was checking out, he spotted a display of prepaid cell phones. On impulse, he added one to his purchases, along with a 6-month service plan. Rather than sending a delivery, Ethan decided to bring the items himself. Sarah might turn him away, but he needed to see for himself that they were okay. The temperature had risen slightly, melting some of the accumulated snow, but the ground remained treacherously slippery. As Ethan made his way down the embankment to the bridge, he carried as many bags as he could manage, moving carefully to avoid falling. "You came back." Ethan nearly lost his footing at the sound of Emma's voice. She stood a few yards away, bundled in the new winter coat he'd sent, a bright red hat pulled over her ears. "I brought some things," he said, hefting the bags. "Is your mom here?" Emma nodded. "She's inside with Noah." She stepped closer, examining Ethan with solemn eyes. "Mom said you probably wouldn't come back. Rich people don't usually care about people like us." "I'm not most rich people," Ethan replied, surprised by how much he wanted Emma to believe him. "I know," she said simply. "You're nicer. That's why I hoped you'd come back." Something warm unfurled in Ethan's chest at her words. "Can I see your mom?" Emma considered this, then nodded. "But if she gets mad, it's not my fault," she warned. She led him to the shelter, which looked considerably more substantial than it had before. The supplies he'd sent had been put to good use. Heavy tarps created a more weatherproof barrier, and the entrance had been reinforced with discarded wooden pallets. "Mom," Emma called. "Ethan's back and he brought more stuff." Sarah emerged, baby Noah balanced on her hip. Her face registered surprise, followed quickly by wariness. She looked somewhat better than she had during their first meeting. Less pale, though the cough was still evident in her voice when she spoke. "Mr. Collingsworth, I thought I made myself clear." "You did," Ethan acknowledged. "I chose not to listen." Sarah's lips twitched, almost forming a smile before she suppressed it. "At least you're honest about your arrogance. It's not arrogance to want to help. When you ignore someone's explicit request not to, that's the definition of arrogance." Despite her words, Sarah's tone lacked the edge it had held during their previous encounter. Emma tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Can we see what he brought, please?" Sarah sighed, then gestured for Ethan to set the bags down near the entrance. "You can leave them there." Instead, Ethan held out the smallest bag containing the teddy bear. "This one's for Emma, if that's okay." Emma looked to her mother for permission. After a moment, Sarah nodded reluctantly. The girl took the bag and peered inside. Her eyes widened as she pulled out the soft brown bear with a red bow around its neck. "He's so fluffy," she exclaimed, hugging it to her chest. "Thank you, Ethan." "There, go some books and art supplies in there too," Ethan told her. "Your mom mentioned you like to draw." Emma looked confused. "Mom never told you that." Ethan realized his mistake. I just guessed. Most kids like to draw, right?" Sarah was watching him closely, her eyes narrowed in suspicion. "How did you know my daughter likes art?" Caught, Ethan admitted the truth. "Emma mentioned it to the grocery store owner while I was waiting in line behind you that first night, before I introduced myself. You were eavesdropping on my daughter." "Not intentionally," Ethan defended himself. "I just, noticed." Sarah studied him for a long moment, then shifted Noah to her other hip. The baby, much more alert than the last time Ethan had seen him, gazed at the stranger with curious eyes. "The supplies you sent were helpful," Sarah finally said, a reluctant acknowledgement. "But I need you to understand something. We're not your pet project or your good deed for the holiday season." "I never thought you were." "Then what is this?" Sarah gestured to the bags at his feet. "Why are you here?" Ethan struggled to articulate an answer that wouldn't sound patronizing or false. "I don't know," he admitted finally. "I just needed to make sure you were okay." Sarah's expression softened slightly at his honesty. "We're managing." "I can see that." Ethan nodded toward their improved shelter. "You've done a lot with what I sent." "I worked construction for a while before Noah was born," Sarah explained. "You pick up skills." Emma, who had been digging through the bags, suddenly squealed with delight. "Mom, look, colored pencils, real ones, not the broken ones from school." Sarah smiled at her daughter's excitement, a genuine smile that transformed her face. "That's wonderful, sweetie." "And books," Emma continued, pulling out the stack of children's stories Ethan had selected. "Can we read one now, please?" "Maybe later," Sarah told her. "Mr. Collingsworth probably needs to get back to his important job." Ethan checked his watch, surprised to find that several hours had passed since he'd left the office. His phone showed multiple missed calls from Victor and his assistant. "Actually, I have some time," he said, silencing the device and returning it to his pocket. Sarah raised an eyebrow, clearly not believing him. "Please, Mom," Emma pleaded. "He could read to me. You always say you're too tired." A flash of pain crossed Sarah's face, the reminder of another way she felt she was failing her daughter. Ethan wanted to reassure her, but knew any words from him would only make it worse. "Fine," Sarah relented. "One book, then Mr. Collingsworth needs to leave." Emma cheered and grabbed Ethan's hand, pulling him toward their shelter. "Come on, I want to show you my drawings too." Ethan hesitated, looking to Sarah for permission to enter their private space. After a moment, she nodded, though her posture remained tense. The interior of the shelter was surprisingly neat and organized. Sarah had clearly worked hard to create some semblance of normalcy within their confined space. A small area had been designated as Emma's room, with a sleeping bag and pillow arranged neatly beside a plastic bin containing her few possessions. Another corner held Noah's makeshift crib, a sturdy cardboard box lined with blankets. The space was cramped but clean, every item in its place. "Sit here," Emma instructed, pointing to a plastic crate that served as a chair. She selected a book from the stack and handed it to him. "This one has dragons in it. I love dragons." As Ethan began to read, Emma settled beside him, her new teddy bear clutched to her chest. Sarah remained standing, watching them with an unreadable expression, Noah still balanced on her hip. The story was simple, a young dragon learning to be brave. But Emma listened with rapt attention, asking questions and commenting on the illustrations. Ethan found himself enjoying the experience more than he'd anticipated, his voice taking on different tones for each character. When the story ended, Emma immediately asked for another, but Sarah shook her head. "That was the deal, Emma. One book. But Mum—" "It's okay," Ethan interrupted gently. "I can come back another time and read more, if that's all right with your mom." Both Emma and Ethan looked to Sarah, whose face reflected her internal conflict. Finally, she sighed. "We'll see." It wasn't a no, which Ethan considered progress. He stood, remembering the prepaid phone he'd purchased. "Before I go, I bought something I hope will be useful." He pulled the phone from his pocket and held it out to Sarah. "It's fully activated and paid for 6 months. My number is already programmed in. If you need anything at all, you can call me." Sarah made no move to take the phone. "We don't need your charity." "It's not charity," Ethan insisted. "It's peace of mind. For me." "Why do you care so much about our peace of mind?" "Not your peace of mind, mine." Ethan set the phone down on a nearby crate. "Please, just take it. Use it if you need to." Sarah still didn't touch the phone, but she didn't reject it outright either. Progress, Ethan thought again. "I should go," he said, turning to Emma. "Thank you for letting me read to you." Emma launched herself forward, wrapping her arms around his waist in an unexpected hug. "Thank you for the bear and the books and everything. Will you really come back?" Over the top of Emma's head, Ethan met Sarah's gaze. "If it's okay with your mom." Sarah said nothing, but she didn't object either. Ethan gently disentangled himself from Emma's embrace and moved toward the entrance. "Goodbye, Mr. Collingsworth," Sarah said formally. "Ethan," he corrected her. "Please, call me Ethan." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Goodbye, Ethan." He climbed back up to street level. Ethan felt lighter than he had in years, despite the growing number of urgent messages on his phone. Something was changing inside him, a slow awakening he couldn't yet define, but that pulled him inexorably back toward the bridge and the family sheltered beneath it. The boardroom fell silent as Ethan entered. 12 faces turned toward him, expressions ranging from concern to barely concealed hostility. Victor sat at the far end of the table, opposite Ethan's usual chair, a position that wasn't lost on anyone present. "Glad you could join us, Ethan," Victor said, his tone making it clear that Ethan's tardiness had been the topic of conversation. "We were just discussing the company's direction." Ethan took his seat without apology. "I believe I'm still the CEO of this company, which means the direction is mine to set." Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Of course, though when the CEO goes AWOL during crucial negotiations, it does raise questions about leadership." Gerald Wilson, the oldest board member and a longtime friend of Ethan's father, cleared his throat. "Ethan, we're concerned. The Thompson deal nearly collapsed. The Westridge acquisition is stalling. And now I hear the Christmas party has been scaled back dramatically. What's going on?" Ethan had indeed instructed his assistant to reduce the party's extravagance, redirecting much of the budget to bonuses for lower-level employees. "I made an executive decision that our staff would appreciate cash more than caviar this year." "It's not about the party," Victor interjected. "It's about what it represents. Collingsworth Investments has always been synonymous with excellence, with winning at all costs. Lately you seem distracted." "I'm reassessing priorities," Ethan said, echoing his earlier words to Victor. "Our profit margins are healthy. Our client base is stable. Perhaps it's time to consider how we measure success beyond quarterly reports." The board members exchanged glances. This was not the Ethan Collingsworth they knew, the ruthless, focused Ice King who had built the company into what it was today. If you're having personal issues, Gerald suggested delicately, perhaps a short leave of absence would be beneficial. Victor could step in temporarily while you sort things out. Ethan's eyes narrowed, so that was Victor's play, to position himself as the natural successor. That won't be necessary, he said, firmly. I'm perfectly capable of running this company. Then act like it, Victor challenged. The Ethan I've known for 15 years wouldn't be missing meetings to wander around the city on personal errands. The meeting continued tensely, with Ethan defending his recent decisions and Victor subtly undermining him at every turn. By the time it ended, the lines had been clearly drawn, half the board still firmly in Ethan's corner, the other half beginning to lean toward Victor's vision of leadership. Back in his office, Ethan loosened his tie and stared out at the skyline. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Sarah, just letting you know the phone works, thanks." The simple message brought an unexpected smile to his face. He saved the number and typed a reply. "Glad to hear it. How are Emma and Noah?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again as if Sarah was second-guessing her response. "Finally. They're fine. Emma won't put down that bear, named him Mr. Snuggles." Ethan chuckled, picturing Emma's serious little face as she christened her new teddy bear. Another text came through. "Noah has a fever. Probably just a cold, but keeping an eye on it." Concern immediately replaced Ethan's amusement. He knew how dangerous even minor illnesses could be for a baby living in those conditions. Before he could respond, another message appeared. "Don't worry, we're managing." Managing seemed to be Sarah's catchphrase, her way of acknowledging difficulty while maintaining her independence. Ethan respected her pride, but couldn't ignore his worry. "Can I bring some medicine or take you to a doctor?" The response took several minutes. "No doctors, we can't afford it, and I don't want social services involved." Ethan understood her fear. Without stable housing, Sarah risked having her children taken away if authorities became aware of their situation. He typed carefully. "I have a friend who's a pediatrician. Completely confidential. No records, no questions." This time the response was almost immediate. "No, but thanks. Medicine would help, though." "On my way," Ethan replied, already grabbing his coat. His assistant looked up in surprise as he headed for the door. "Mr. Collingsworth, you have the Jameson call in 20 minutes. Reschedule it," he instructed, not breaking stride. Hour later, Ethan made his way down the now familiar path to the bridge, carrying a bag from the pharmacy containing children's fever reducer, cold medicine, vapor rub, and a digital thermometer. He'd also thrown in more diapers and wipes, knowing they were always needed. Sarah met him before he reached the shelter, her face tight with worry despite her attempts to appear calm. "You didn't have to come yourself," she said. "I could have met you somewhere." "How is he?" Ethan asked, handing her the bag. "Fussy, warm." She peered into the bag, visibly relieved at its contents. "Thank you for this." "Can I see him?" Ethan asked. "I'm not a doctor, but I might be able to help." Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "Emma will be happy to see you anyway. She's been asking when you're coming back to read more stories." The shelter felt even more cramped with Ethan's tall frame inside it. Emma was sitting beside Noah's makeshift crib, singing softly to her feverish brother. Her face lit up when she saw Ethan. "You came back!" she exclaimed, jumping up to hug him. "Look, Mr. Snuggles missed you too." She thrust the teddy bear toward him, and Ethan solemnly shook its paw. "Nice to see you again, Mr. Snuggles." Emma giggled, then her expression grew serious. "Noah's sick. He's really hot, and he won't stop crying." Ethan knelt beside the crib. The baby's cheeks were flushed, his breathing slightly labored. "May I?" he asked Sarah, who nodded permission for him to touch her son. Gently, Ethan placed his hand on Noah's forehead. The heat radiating from the infant was concerning. "He definitely has a fever. Do you have a thermometer?" "Not until now," Sarah replied, opening the package Ethan had brought. She carefully took Noah's temperature. 101.3, she read aloud, her worry evident. "The medicine will help bring that down," Ethan assured her, though his own concern was growing. Her baby this young with such a high fever needed proper medical attention. Sarah, I really think he should see a doctor. She shook her head firmly. I told you, we can't. What if the doctor came here? Ethan pressed. My friend Marcus is completely trustworthy. He works with Doctors Without Borders when he's not in his practice. He's treated people in much worse situations than this without involving authorities. Sarah bit her lip, looking down at Noah's flushed face. I don't know. Please, Mom, Emma pleaded. Noah needs a doctor. After a long moment, Sarah nodded reluctantly. Okay, but just the doctor. No one else. Ethan stepped outside to make the call, explaining the situation to his friend without revealing Sarah's full circumstances. Marcus agreed to come after his last appointment, around 7 p.m. He'll be here in a few hours, Ethan told Sarah when he returned. In the meantime, let's give Noah the fever reducer. Together, they administered the medicine to the fussy baby. Sarah's hands were steady, but Ethan could see the fear in her eyes. He wondered how many times she'd had to handle crises like this alone, with no one to help her or even reassure her that she was doing the right thing. You're a good mother, he said quietly. Sarah looked up, startled by the unexpected compliment. How would you know? I can see it. In how you care for them, how you protect them. Most people would have given up by now. That's not an option when you're a parent, she replied, gently stroking Noah's hair. You do whatever you have to do. Emma tugged at Ethan's sleeve. Will you read me another story while we wait for the doctor? Please? Emma, Mr. Collingsworth probably has to get back to work, Sarah said. Actually, I'm free for the rest of the day, Ethan replied, having already instructed his assistant to clear his schedule. I'd be happy to read to you, Emma. For the next hour, Ethan read story after story from the books he'd brought. With Emma cuddled close to his side, Mr. Snuggles clutched in her arms. Sarah sat nearby, tending to Noah, occasionally smiling at Emma's reactions to the stories. As Ethan finished another tale, he noticed Emma studying him intently. What is it? He asked. Why don't you have any kids? She asked bluntly. You're really good at reading stories and you're nice. You'd be a good dad. The question caught Ethan off guard. I never really thought about it, he admitted. I've always been busy with work. Too busy for kids? Emma looked genuinely perplexed by this concept. Emma, that's a personal question. Sarah chided gently. It's okay, Ethan assured her. It's a fair question. He turned back to Emma. The truth is, I never found someone I wanted to have a family with. Why not? Ethan struggled to formulate an answer that a child could understand. I guess I was looking for the wrong things, he said finally. I was looking for someone who liked my money and my status, not me. Sarah's eyes met his across the small space, and something unspoken passed between them, recognition perhaps of shared loneliness despite their vastly different circumstances. The moment was interrupted by Noah's crying, more insistent now despite the medicine. Sarah lifted him, concern etched on her face. His fever's not going down, she said, placing her cheek against his forehead. Ethan checked his watch. Marcus should be here soon. He hesitated, then added, Sarah, this place isn't good for a sick baby. The dampness, the cold, he needs somewhere warm and clean to recover. We don't have options, she replied tersely. Ethan took a deep breath. You do. My penthouse has 5 bedrooms, all sitting empty. You and the children could stay there just until Noah is better. Sarah's expression immediately closed off. No? Sarah. I said no. Her voice was firm. We're not charity cases, Ethan, and I'm not going to owe you something I can't repay. You wouldn't owe me anything, Ethan insisted. It would just be a temporary arrangement for Noah's sake. And what would people think, seeing a woman and 2 children suddenly living in the great Ethan Collingsworth's penthouse? Sarah's eyes flashed. I know how the world works. I know what assumptions would be made. I don't care what people think. Well, I do. Sarah stroked Noah's back as he continued to cry. My children and I have lost almost everything, but we still have our dignity. Emma, who had been listening silently, suddenly spoke up. Mum, what's dignity? Sarah's expression softened as she looked at her daughter. It's knowing your own worth, even when the world tries to tell you that you don't have any. Does staying under a bridge give us dignity? Emma asked, her innocent question cutting to the heart of their situation. Because I think Noah would get better faster in a real house. Sarah closed her eyes briefly, the weight of her decisions evident in every line of her body. Before she could respond, there was a soft call from outside. Ethan, it's Marcus. That's the doctor, Ethan said, rising to his feet. I'll bring him in. Dr. Marcus Chen entered the shelter cautiously, his kind face registering no surprise or judgment at their living conditions. He introduced himself to Sarah, his manner professional but warm, then immediately turned his attention to Noah. The examination was thorough, with Marcus explaining each step to Sarah as he proceeded. Finally, he straightened up. It's bronchiolitis, a respiratory infection common in infants. He needs antibiotics and a lot of fluids, and honestly, he needs to be in a warm, dry environment. He glanced around the shelter. This dampness isn't helping his breathing. Sarah's face paled. Is it serious? It can be if left untreated, Marcus replied honestly. But we've caught it early. The antibiotics I'm prescribing should help, but his recovery environment is just as important. Sarah looked down at Noah, then at Emma, who was watching her with worried eyes. Ethan could see the internal struggle playing out on her face, her fierce independence warring with her maternal instinct to do whatever was necessary for her children's well-being. My offer stands, Ethan said quietly. No strings attached. Just a warm place to stay until Noah is better. Sarah remained silent for a long moment, gently rocking Noah against her shoulder. Finally, she looked up, her eyes meeting Ethan's with a mixture of resignation and determination. 3 days, she said firmly. We stay for 3 days until Noah's fever breaks, and then we leave. Whatever you want, Ethan agreed quickly, before she could change her mind. And we stay in one room all together, Sarah added. I'm not spreading out in your mansion like we belong there. Of course. Emma was looking between them, hope dawning on her face. Are we going to stay in a real house? She asked cautiously, as if afraid to believe it. Sarah nodded, her expression serious. Just for a little while, sweetie. Just until Noah feels better. With real beds and a bathtub and everything? Emma's voice rose with excitement. Yes, Ethan confirmed, smiling at her enthusiasm. And a kitchen where your mum can cook if she wants to. Can Mr. Snuggles come too? Emma asked, clutching her teddy bear tightly. Of course Mr. Snuggles is invited, Ethan assured her solemnly. As they gathered the few possessions Sarah deemed essential, Ethan stepped outside with Marcus to thank him. I owe you one, he told his friend. Marcus shook his head. You don't owe me anything. But Ethan, he hesitated. What exactly are you doing here? This isn't like you. Ethan glanced back toward the shelter where Sarah was carefully wrapping Noah in blankets. I honestly don't know, he admitted. I just know I can't walk away. The penthouse elevator opened directly into Ethan's foyer, revealing a space that managed to be both immense and oddly impersonal. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the glittering Manhattan skyline, but the sleek furniture and monochromatic color scheme gave the impression of a luxury hotel rather than a home. Sarah stood, frozen at the threshold, Noah bundled against her chest, her few possessions clutched in a small backpack. Emma, however, had no such reservations. She darted forward, eyes wide with wonder. It's like a castle in the sky, she exclaimed, twirling in the center of the vast living room. Do you really live here all by yourself? I do, Ethan confirmed, watching her reaction with a strange mix of pleasure and embarrassment. Seeing his home through Emma's eyes made him acutely aware of its emptiness. But it's so big, Emma continued, peering down hallways and into rooms. Don't you get lonely? The question, so innocently asked, struck Ethan with unexpected force. Had he been lonely? The concept had never occurred to him before. He'd been alone certainly, but he'd always considered that a choice, not a condition. Emma, don't be nosy, Sarah chided softly, finally stepping fully into the apartment. Remember what we discussed. We're guests here and we need to be respectful." Emma nodded solemnly. "I remember. No touching fancy things, no running, no being loud." Ethan frowned. "You don't have to worry about any of that, Emma. This place could use a little noise." He turned to Sarah. "Let me show you to your room." He led them down a hallway to a spacious guest suite that featured a king-sized bed, a sitting area, and an ensuite bathroom with a soaking tub. Like the rest of the penthouse, it was tastefully decorated but lacked personal touches. "Will this be okay?" he asked, suddenly anxious that the space might be too sterile, too formal for a family accustomed to close quarters. Sarah nodded, her expression unreadable. "It's fine. Thank you." Emma had already discovered the bathroom and could be heard, exclaiming over the size of the tub. "Mom, it's like a swimming pool." A small smile tugged at Sarah's lips despite her obvious discomfort. "I should get Noah settled," she said, moving toward the bed. "The medicine is making him drowsy." "Of course." Ethan backed toward the door. "The kitchen is fully stocked, so help yourself to anything you need. I usually have dinner delivered, but I can cook something if you'd prefer." Sarah looked surprised. "You cook?" "Well, cook might be an overstatement," Ethan admitted with a self-deprecating smile. "I can manage pasta without burning down the building, usually." That earned him another small smile. "I can cook," Sarah offered hesitantly. "If you have ingredients, it's the least I can do." "You don't have to." "I want to," she interrupted firmly. "I need to contribute something." Ethan recognized her need to maintain a sense of dignity and reciprocity. "That would be nice," he conceded. "I can't remember the last time I had a home-cooked meal." "Really?" Sarah looked genuinely surprised. "With a kitchen like that?" Ethan shrugged. "It came with the place. I mostly used the coffee maker." Sarah shook her head slightly, as if the concept of having a professional kitchen and not using it was unfathomable to her. The moment was interrupted by Emma's return from the bathroom, her eyes still wide with excitement. "Can I take a bath in the big tub? Please, Mom?" "Let's get Noah settled first," Sarah replied, gently laying the drowsy baby on the center of the large bed and surrounding him with pillows to prevent him from rolling. "Then we'll get you cleaned up." Ethan left them to settle in, retreating to his home office to deal with the barrage of messages that had accumulated throughout the day. Victor had called 6 times, his voicemails growing increasingly irritated. The board wanted an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. The Thompson deal was officially on hold, pending Ethan's renewed commitment. He rubbed his temples, feeling the beginnings of a headache. His perfectly ordered life was unraveling, and the strangest part was that he didn't care as much as he should. The business that had once been his entire world now seemed distant, less important than the family currently occupying his guest room. A soft knock at the office door pulled him from his thoughts. Sarah stood in the doorway, her posture still guarded, despite the more relaxed expression on her face. "Noah's asleep," she reported, "and Emma's enjoying the bath of her dreams. I thought I'd start dinner if that's okay." "Of course." Ethan stood, eager for a reason to step away from the accumulating problems on his screen. "I'll show you where everything is." In the kitchen, Sarah moved with surprising confidence, opening cabinets and examining their contents with an efficiency that spoke of someone accustomed to making do with limited resources. "You really don't cook much, do you?" she observed, noting the pristine condition of the pots and pans. "Is it that obvious?" Ethan leaned against the counter, watching her work. "These still have the manufacturer's stickers on them," Sarah pointed out, peeling a label from the bottom, "of a sauté pain." Ethan had the grace to look embarrassed. "The decorator ordered everything. I never really noticed." Sarah shook her head again, but this time there was a hint of amusement in her eyes. "What do you do for food, then?" "Restaurants, delivery, the occasional business dinner. Every day?" Sarah looked genuinely perplexed as she began chopping vegetables. "That must cost a fortune." Ethan shrugged. "I suppose it does." Sarah's hands stilled for a moment. "Do you have any idea how many meals I could make for my children with what you probably spend on takeout in a week?" The question wasn't accusatory, just matter of fact, but it hit Ethan like a physical blow. I never really thought about it, he admitted quietly. That's the difference between us, Sarah said, resuming her chopping. You have the luxury of not thinking about money. I think about it every minute of every day. An uncomfortable silence fell between them. Ethan wanted to defend himself, to explain that he'd earned his wealth through hard work and smart decisions, but he knew that wasn't the point. Sarah wasn't attacking him for being rich. She was simply highlighting the vast gulf of experience that separated them. I'm sorry, he said finally. That was insensitive of me. Sarah glanced up, surprise flitting across her face. I didn't expect an apology. Did you expect me to be offended? Most rich people I've met don't like being reminded of their privilege, she replied, turning to rinse the vegetables in the sink. They prefer to believe they've earned everything through merit alone. Haven't I? The question slipped out, before Ethan could stop it, revealing his own insecurity. Sarah turned to face him fully, her expression thoughtful. I'm sure you've worked hard, she acknowledged, but I've worked hard too. The difference is you had a foundation to build on. I've been trying to build on quicksand. Before Ethan could respond, Emma appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a fluffy bathrobe that engulfed her small frame. Mom, that was the best bath ever, she exclaimed, her hair still damp. And look what I found in the bathroom. She held up a small bottle of scented lotion. It smells like flowers. Sarah smiled at her daughter's excitement. Did you ask if you could use that? Emma's face fell slightly. No, I'm sorry, I can put it back. It's yours, Ethan said quickly. In fact, there are more toiletries in the cabinet under the sink. Feel free to use whatever you like. Emma's smile returned, brighter than before. Thank you, can I help with dinner? Wash your hands first, Sarah instructed, turning back to her preparations. As Emma climbed onto a stool at the kitchen island, chattering excitedly about the bubble bath and the million settings on the shower, Ethan was struck by how quickly his sterile apartment had come alive. The kitchen, which had previously served as little more than a coffee station, now filled with the sounds and smells of actual cooking. Emma's voice echoed in spaces that had known only silence. Even Sarah, despite her initial reservations, moved through the kitchen with increasing comfort. An hour later, they sat at Ethan's rarely used dining table, enjoying a simple but delicious meal of pasta with vegetables and garlic bread. This is amazing, Ethan said sincerely, realizing he couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten a meal that wasn't served on fine china in a restaurant or delivered in plastic containers. It's just pasta, Sarah replied, though she looked pleased by the compliment. Anyone can make pasta. Not Ethan, Emma said with the brutal honesty of childhood. He said he'd probably burn the building down. Sarah's lips twitched. Did he now? I may have exaggerated my culinary incompetence, Ethan admitted, but not by much. Could teach you, Emma offered seriously. Mum taught me how to make lots of things. I'm really good at sandwiches. I'd like that, Ethan replied, equally serious. I could use some sandwich expertise. As they continued eating, Noah's cries echoed from the bedroom. Sarah immediately rose, but Ethan gestured for her to sit. Finish your dinner, he said. I can check on him. Sarah hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the idea of Ethan handling her baby. He probably needs to be changed. I can manage that, Ethan assured her, though in truth he had never changed a diaper in his life. Just tell me what to do. After receiving detailed instructions, Ethan made his way to the bedroom where Noah was indeed awake and fussing. The baby's fever seemed less intense, but his discomfort was evident in his red-rimmed eyes and stuffed nose. Hey there, little guy, Ethan said softly, carefully lifting Noah from the nest of pillows. Let's get you cleaned up, okay? The diaper. Changing proved more challenging than anticipated, but Ethan managed it with only minor difficulties. As he finished securing the fresh diaper, Noah gazed up at him with solemn eyes that seemed too knowing for an infant. Your mom's amazing, you know that, Ethan told the baby as he gently lifted him. And your sister too. You're a lucky little man, having them in your corner. Noah responded by grabbing Ethan's finger with surprising strength. The simple gesture, this tiny hand holding onto his, created a sudden tightness in Ethan's chest, an emotion he couldn't name but that felt dangerously close to longing. He carried Noah back to the dining room, where Sarah immediately assessed her son with a mother's practiced eye. "His fever's down," she noted with relief. "The medicine must be working." "He seemed alert," Ethan reported, reluctantly transferring the baby to Sarah's waiting arms. "And he has quite a grip." "He's strong," Sarah agreed, a note of pride in her voice. "He's been fighting since the day he was born." After dinner, Ethan insisted that Sarah relax while he and Emma cleared the table. The task took longer than necessary due to Emma's detailed explanation of the proper way to rinse dishes, but Ethan found himself enjoying the child's enthusiastic instruction. Later, when Sarah was settling the children for bed, Ethan retreated into his office to deal with the most urgent of his messages. He was deep in a financial report when a small voice interrupted him. "Ethan, are you working?" He looked up to find Emma in the doorway, now dressed in one of his t-shirts as an improvised nightgown. Mr. Snuggles clutched to her chest. "Just finishing up," he replied, setting aside the tablet. "Shouldn't you be in bed?" "Mom's feeding." "Noah," Emma explained, "and I wanted to say good night." She hesitated, then asked hopefully, "Could you read me a bedtime story? Just one." The request was so simple, yet it pierced Ethan's carefully constructed defenses. How long had it been since anyone had wanted anything from him that wasn't related to money or power? This child didn't care about his net worth or his business acumen. She just wanted a story. "I'd be honored," he said, rising from his desk. Emma led him back to the guest room, where Sarah sat in an armchair by the window nursing Noah. She looked up as they entered, an unreadable expression crossing her face. "Emma, you shouldn't be bothering Ethan when he's working," she chided gently. "It's no bother," Ethan assured her, as Emma climbed onto the bed and patted the space beside her. "Just one story," Sarah conceded. "Then sleep." As Ethan read about a princess who saved herself from a dragon, he was acutely aware of Sarah watching them, her expression softening as Emma's eyelids grew heavy. By the time he finished the story, the child was fast asleep, Mr. Snuggles tucked securely under her arm. Ethan carefully extracted himself from the bed and moved toward the door, where Sarah now stood with a sleeping Noah against her shoulder. "Thank you," she said quietly. This hasn't been easy for her." "She's an amazing child," Ethan replied. "You've done an incredible job with her, especially considering the circumstances." Sarah's eyes glistened slightly in the dim light. "Sometimes I think she's raising me, not the other way around." They stood in silence for a moment, the sleeping children creating an unexpected intimacy between them. "Good night, Ethan," Sarah finally said, her voice soft. "Good night, Sarah." Back in his own bedroom, Ethan found himself unable to sleep. The penthouse that had always felt like an appropriate size for one person now seemed to expand and contract around the presence of his guests. He could hear the occasional soft sounds from the guest room, a child's murmur, Sarah's gentle shushing, ordinary domestic sounds that his home had never known. His phone vibrated on the nightstand, another message from Victor. Ethan ignored it, turning instead to stare out at the city lights. For the first time in his adult life, the view from his window seemed less compelling than the small family temporarily sheltered within his walls. In the darkness of his bedroom, Ethan finally put a name to the feeling that had been growing inside him since he first saw Emma in that grocery store: loneliness. He had been lonely, desperately so without ever acknowledging it. The realization was both painful and liberating, forcing him to confront the emptiness of the life he had built. Eventually, he drifted into sleep, his dreams filled with small hands and trusting eyes, with home-cooked meals and bedtime stories, ordinary treasures he had never known to want. He woke to the unfamiliar sound of laughter coming from his kitchen. For a moment he lay disoriented, the sound so out of place in his silent home that it seemed like part of a dream. Then memory returned. Sarah, Emma, Noah, the family under his roof. Pulling on a robe, Ethan made his way to the kitchen, where he found Emma perched on a counter stool, giggling as Sarah attempted to flip pancakes with exaggerated flourish. "You're supposed to catch it in the pan, Mom," Emma exclaimed. "Like on TV." "If I tried that, we'd be having pancake off the ceiling," Sarah replied, smiling more freely than Ethan had yet seen. Noah sat in a makeshift high chair, created from cushions stacked on a dining chair. He looked markedly better this morning, his eyes clearer and his cheeks less flushed. "Good morning," Ethan said, hesitating at the threshold of his own kitchen, suddenly feeling like an intruder. 3 pairs of eyes turned toward him, Emma's. Delighted, Noah's curious, Sarah's suddenly guarded again, as if she'd forgotten her circumstances for a moment, and his appearance had brought reality crashing back. "We made breakfast," Emma announced proudly, "to say thank you for letting us stay in your castle." "It's hardly a castle," Ethan replied, moving further into the kitchen. "It is to us," Sarah said quietly, turning back to the stove. "Coffee's ready. Emma insisted we make pancakes. I hope that's okay." "It's perfect," Ethan said, meaning it more than she could know. "It smells amazing." As they ate breakfast together, Ethan's phone buzzed repeatedly in his pocket. The board meeting was in an hour. Victor had sent multiple texts warning of serious consequences if Ethan failed to appear. The Thompson deal needed immediate attention. For the first time in his career, Ethan considered simply not going. The thought of leaving this warm kitchen, with Emma's chatter and Noah's baby babbles, to return to the cold calculations of the boardroom filled him with unexpected reluctance. Sarah, ever observant, noticed his distraction. "You have to work," she stated, not a question but a recognition of reality. Ethan nodded. "Board meeting. Important?" she asked, wiping syrup from Emma's chin. "Supposedly." He hesitated, then asked, "Will you be okay here? You have my number if you need anything." "We'll be fine," Sarah assured him. "This isn't our first day managing on our own." The reminder of their self-sufficiency was gentle but clear. They had survived without him before, and they would again. Whatever was happening here was temporary, a brief intersection of vastly different lives. As Ethan rose to prepare for his meeting, Emma's voice stopped him. "Will you come back for dinner? Mom said she could make chicken if you have some." The cha-cha, simple question, "Will you come back?" carried more weight than Emma could know. Ethan found himself answering with unexpected certainty. "Nothing could keep me away." The boardroom fell silent as Ethan entered, his usual immaculate appearance slightly rumpled from his rushed preparation. Victor sat at the head of the table, Ethan's seat, and made no move to relinquish it. "How kind of you to join us," Victor said, his tone making it clear that Ethan's tardiness had been the topic of discussion. "We were just reviewing the quarterly projections." Ethan took the only available chair, acutely aware of the power play at work. "I'm sure you've done an admirable job, Victor, but perhaps we should start from the beginning since I'm here now." Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Of course." He reluctantly stood, allowing Ethan to take his rightful place. For the next 2 hours, Ethan forced himself to focus on spreadsheets, market analyses, and client concerns. He responded to questions with his usual acumen, made decisive calls on pending issues, and presented a clear vision for the coming quarter. To anyone observing, he was the same commanding CEO he'd always been, but internally, his thoughts kept drifting back to the penthouse. Was Noah's fever continuing to improve? Had Sarah found everything she needed? Was Emma exploring the apartment, finding new wonders to exclaim over? "Ethan," Gerald Wilson's voice broke through his momentary distraction. "Your thoughts on the Thompson restructuring?" Ethan quickly gathered his thoughts, delivering a concise analysis that satisfied the board. As the meeting concluded, he felt Victor's eyes on him, calculating and cold. "A word, Ethan?" Victor requested as the others filed out. When they were alone, Victor's false cordiality evaporated. "What game are you playing?" he demanded. "You show up late looking like you slept in your clothes, yet somehow managed to charm the board into thinking you're still committed." "I am committed," Ethan replied evenly. "The company is performing well above market expectations. My personal key. Life is just that, personal." Victor leaned forward. "When your personal life affects this company, it becomes my business." There are rumors, Ethan. People have seen you in some questionable neighborhoods recently. Ethan's spine stiffened. Have you been having me followed? I've been protecting our company's interests, Victor countered. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do. Be very careful, Victor, Ethan warned, his voice quiet but dangerous. You're crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed. Victor smirked. Says the man who's apparently developed a sudden interest in charity cases. Is she pretty at least? Worth risking everything you've built? Ethan's hands clenched into fists, a surge of protective anger rising in him. You know nothing about my life or my choices. I know that the Ice King of Wall Street doesn't suddenly develop a conscience without a reason, Victor replied. Whatever or whoever has gotten under your skin, remember what's at stake. This company, your legacy, everything your father built. Don't speak about my father, Ethan cut him off coldly. He may have founded this company, but I built it into what it is today, and I can tear it down just as easily if I choose. The threat hung in the air between them, both men aware that it wasn't empty. Ethan owned controlling interest in the company. If pushed, he could indeed dismantle everything. You wouldn't, Victor said, though uncertainty had crept into his voice. Test me and find out. Ethan stood, straightening his slightly rumpled jacket. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual work to do. As he strode from the boardroom, Ethan felt strangely liberated. For years, the company had been his entire identity. Now, for the first time, he was discovering that there might be more to Ethan Collingsworth than balance sheets and billion-dollar deals. Back in his office, he found himself checking his phone more frequently than usual, hoping for a message from Sarah. Around noon, a text finally appeared. Noah's fever is completely gone. The doctor called to check in, said we can stop the antibiotics in 3 days if he continues improving. Relief washed through Ethan, followed by a strange warmth at being included in Noah's recovery. He typed back, "That's wonderful news. How are you and Emma doing?" The reply came quickly. "Emma's found your collection of old records. Hope that's okay. I've never seen her so fascinated by anything. She keeps asking how music can come from a black circle." Ethan smiled, picturing Emma's serious little face examining his vinyl collection, a remnant of his college days that he'd kept more out of habit than any sentimental attachment. She's welcome to explore them. I'll show her how the turntable works when I get home. He paused, his thumb hovering over the send button. Home, not when I return or when I get back to the penthouse, but home. The word felt right in a way it never had before. Throughout the afternoon, Ethan moved through his meetings and calls with renewed focus, driven by the simple desire to finish his work and return to the penthouse. Around 5, his assistant reminded him of a dinner engagement with potential investors. Cancel it, he instructed, already gathering his things. Reschedule for next week. His assistant's eyebrows rose in surprise. Ethan Collingsworth never cancelled business dinners, but she made no comment. On the drive home, Ethan found himself stopping at a bookstore to purchase more children's books, including an illustrated guide to how records work that he thought might interest Emma. An impulse led him to the toy section as well, where he selected a soft rattle for Noah and an art set for Emma, remembering her love of drawing. When the elevator doors opened to his penthouse, the contrast to his morning departure was striking. Soft music played from the record player in the living room, and the smell of roasting chicken filled the air. From somewhere deeper in the apartment came the sound of Emma's laughter. "Hello," he called, setting down his briefcase and the shopping bags. Emma appeared from the hallway, her face lighting up at the sight of him. "Ethan, you're back!" She ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist in an enthusiastic hug. "Mum's giving Noah a bath in the big tub, and I've been listening to your music. Did you know some of your records are really, really old?" "Almost as old as I am," Ethan replied, with mock seriousness, returning her hug with a warmth that surprised him. "You're not old," Emma assured him earnestly. "Mum says you're in your prime, whatever that means." Ethan raised an eyebrow, wondering exactly what context had prompted Sarah to make such an observation. "Does she now?" Emma nodded. "She said lots of things about you while she was cooking. I think she likes you, even though she pretends to be grumpy. Before Ethan could process this intriguing information, Sarah appeared with Noah wrapped in a towel, her cheeks slightly flushed. Whether from the steam of the bath or Emma's revelations was unclear. "Emma, I'm sure Ethan doesn't need to hear everything we discussed today," she said, her tone light but her eyes warning her daughter not to continue. "Welcome back," she added to Ethan, her voice carefully neutral. "Dinner should be ready in about 20 minutes. It smells amazing," Ethan replied, trying not to stare at the domestic tableau before him. Sarah with damp sleeves and a baby on her hip, Emma bouncing excitedly beside him. How had his sterile, empty penthouse transformed so completely in just 24 hours? "What's in the bags?" Emma asked, eyeing the packages Ethan had set down. "Emma, don't be nosy," Sarah admonished. "Actually, they're for you," Ethan said, handing one bag to Emma. "And this is for Noah." Emma's eyes widened as she pulled out the art set, professional quality colored pencils, sketching paper and watercolors. "These are real artist supplies," she breathed, handling the pencils. With reverence, Sarah's expression tightened. "Ethan, you shouldn't—" "It's just a small gift," he interrupted gently. "I noticed how much she loves to draw." He approached Sarah and Noah, offering the soft rattle he'd purchased. The baby reached for it immediately, his earlier illness seemingly forgotten in his delight with the new toy. "Thank you," Sarah said quietly, her resistance melting slightly at the sight of her children's joy. "But please don't make a habit of this. We can't— I don't want them getting used to things we can't provide once we leave." The reminder of their temporary arrangement stung more than Ethan expected. "I understand," he said, though part of him wanted to argue that they didn't have to leave at all. The evening passed in a haze of domestic comfort that Ethan had never experienced. They ate dinner at the table, with Emma chattering about the records she'd discovered and Noah banging his new rattle against his makeshift high chair. Afterward, Ethan showed Emma how the turntable worked, explaining the mechanics of vinyl records, with a patience he rarely exhibited in business dealings. Later, when the children were asleep, Ethan found Sarah standing at the window, gazing out at the city lights. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked, joining her. Sarah smiled faintly. "I think they're worth at least $1 in this economy." "Inflation," Ethan agreed solemnly. "How about a cup of tea instead?" She nodded, and they moved to the kitchen where Ethan prepared 2 mugs of tea with a domestic ease that would have shocked his business associates. "Noah looks much better," he commented as they sat at the kitchen island. "The medicine is working," Sarah confirmed. "And being somewhere warm and dry?" She trailed off, then added quietly, "Thank you for that. I know I wasn't receptive at first." "You were protecting your children," Ethan replied. "I admire that." Sarah studied him over the rim of her mug. "You're not what I expected," she admitted. "What did you expect?" "Someone colder, more calculating." She hesitated. "Someone who wanted something in return." "Maybe I did once," Ethan said thoughtfully. "Maybe I would have been exactly what you feared. But something's changed." "Emma," Sarah said with certainty, "she has that effect on people. She sees the good in everyone, even when they can't see it themselves." "She's extraordinary," Ethan agreed. "But it's not just Emma. It's all of you. You've shown me a world I never knew existed. Not just the hardship, but the connection, so this humanity of it." Sarah's expression softened. "That's a lot to put on a homeless single mother and her kids." "It's not a burden I'm placing on you," Ethan clarified. "It's a gift you've given me without even trying." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the city glittering beyond the windows, the soft sounds of sleeping children the only noise in the otherwise quiet apartment. "Tomorrow is our last day," Sarah said finally, setting down her mug. "Noah's fever is gone. He's responding well to the antibiotics. I need to keep my word." Ethan wanted to protest, to argue that 3 days had been an arbitrary deadline, that there was no reason for them to return to the bridge, but he respected Sarah too much to undermine her autonomy. "Where will you go?" he asked instead. Sarah's shoulders stiffened slightly. "Back to where we were." "Sarah, it's temporary," she interrupted. I have an interview at a restaurant next week. If I get the job, I can start saving for a security deposit. Let me help, Ethan offered. Not charity, just a loan for an apartment. You can pay me back when you're on your feet. Sarah shook her head firmly. I've learned the hard way not to build my life on someone else's foundation. It collapses too easily. Her words reminded Ethan of their earlier conversation about privilege. Is this about pride? It's about survival, Sarah corrected him. About teaching my children that we don't depend on anyone else's generosity, because it always comes with strings attached. Not always, Ethan said quietly. Sarah met his gaze directly. Doesn't it? Be honest, Ethan. When you first saw us, when you first helped, didn't you feel good about yourself? Didn't it give you a rush of satisfaction to be the savior? The question was pointed but not unkind, simply honest in a way few people had ever been with him. Yes, he admitted. At first maybe that was part of it. But now, he struggled to articulate the complex emotions that had developed over the past few days. Now I just want you all to be safe, to be happy, not because it makes me feel good, but because I've come to care about you. All of you. The honesty of his words hung in the air between them. Sarah's expression softened, vulnerability briefly replacing her usual guardedness. I believe you, she said finally, and that's what scares me. Before Ethan could respond, a loud banging on the door broke the moment. Both of them jumped, startled by the unexpected noise. Who could that be at this hour? Sarah asked, glancing at the clock, which showed nearly midnight. Ethan moved toward the door, checking the security monitor in the hallway. A man he didn't recognize stood outside, swaying slightly, his appearance disheveled. I don't know. Him, Ethan said, his hand hesitating over the intercom button. Sarah moved to see the screen and the color drained from her face. Jake, she whispered, her voice tight with fear. Who? Noah's father. Her hands were trembling. How did he find us? Ethan's protective instincts surged. You know him. Unfortunately. Sarah stepped back from the monitor, arms wrapped around herself. He's the reason we were under that bridge. He kicked us out when Noah was born, said he never signed up to support another man's kid. But Noah is his... Yes. Sarah's expression hardened. That didn't stop him from denying it, or from taking everything we had before throwing us out. Emma was his stepdaughter. He made it very clear she wasn't his problem either. The banging continued, louder now. Sarah, a slurred voice called through the door. I know you're in there, open the damn door. Emma appeared in the hallway, rubbing her eyes sleepily. Mom, what's that noise? Sarah immediately went to her daughter, pulling her close. Nothing, sweetheart. Go back to bed. Is that Jake? Emma asked, her small body tensing. Did he find us? The fear in the child's voice made Ethan's decision immediate. He pressed the intercom button. You need to leave, he said firmly. Now, before I call security. Who the hell are you? The man demanded. Where's Sarah? I know she's in there. Mr. Collingsworth. The night doorman's voice came through, another channel of the intercom. There's a disturbance on your floor. Should I call the police? No police, Sarah said quickly, her face pale. Please, Ethan, no authorities. Ethan understood her fear. Police involvement could lead to questions about her housing situation, potentially triggering child welfare involvement. It's being handled, James, Ethan told the doorman. Please escort this man out of the building. You can't keep her from me, Jake shouted, his voice growing more belligerent. She's my property, mine. Sarah flinched at the words, and Emma pressed closer to her mother, trembling slightly. You heard Mr. Collingsworth? Came the doorman's voice, now directly outside the door. You need to leave, sir. There was the sound of a scuffle, then Jake's voice again, more distant now. This isn't over, Sarah. You think you can shack up with some rich guy? You're nothing but a... The elevator doors cut off the rest of his tirade, leaving a heavy silence in the penthouse. Emma looked up at her mother with wide, frightened eyes. Is he going to come back? Is he going to take us away? No, sweetheart, Sarah assured her, though her own voice shook slightly. He can't hurt us anymore. I'll make sure of it, Ethan added, his voice leaving no room for doubt. He knelt to Emma's level. I promise you, Emma, you're safe here. The child studied him solemnly, then asked in a small voice, "Can I sleep in your room tonight? With you and Mom, I'm scared." The innocent question created an immediate tension. Sarah's cheeks flushed and Ethan found himself momentarily speechless. "Emma, Ethan and I we're not..." Sarah struggled to explain. "You can sleep with your mum in the guest room," Ethan offered gently, "and I'll stay right outside the door all night, like a guard. Nothing will get past me, I promise." Emma considered this suggestion, then nodded solemnly. "Okay, but leave the door open a little so I can see you." "Of course," Ethan agreed. After settling Emma back in bed with Noah still miraculously asleep despite the commotion, Ethan positioned an armchair in the hallway outside their room, true to his word. Sarah paused in the doorway, her expression troubled. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. "I want to," Ethan replied simply. "It will help Emma feel safe." Sarah hesitated, then asked the question that clearly weighed on her mind. "How did he find us here?" Ethan had been wondering the same thing. "I don't know. Has he contacted you recently?" She shook her head. "Not since we left. He made it very clear he wanted nothing to do with us." "Until now," Ethan observed grimly, "when he thought you might have found someone with resources." Sarah's expression confirmed his suspicion. "He always shows up when he thinks there's something to take," she said bitterly. "When I got my last job, he appeared out of nowhere demanding money. When I refused, he made sure I got fired." "He won't get near you or the children, Ethan." "Promised. Not while I have anything to say about it." Sarah studied him in the dim hallway light. "Why are you doing all this, Ethan?" "Really?" It was a question he'd been asking himself, and the answer had been evolving with each passing day. What had started as an impulse, perhaps even the savior complex Sarah had accurately identified, had become something much deeper, much more fundamental. "Because for the first time in my life," he said slowly, "I feel like I'm part of something, real, something that matters more than money or power or success." Sarah's eyes glistened in the darkness. "We can't stay," she whispered. "You know that, right? This isn't our world." "It could be," Ethan said, the words escaping before he could stop them. Sarah shook her head sadly. "Fairy tales don't happen to people like me, Ethan." "This isn't a fairy tale," he insisted. "It's just people finding each other when they need it most." Sarah didn't respond, but her expression softened slightly. She reached out, briefly touching his hand in the darkness. "Good night, Ethan," she whispered, "and thank you for everything." As she disappeared into the room, leaving the door slightly ajar as promised, Ethan settled into the chair, prepared to keep his vigil through the night. From inside, he could hear Emma's soft voice asking questions and Sarah's gentle responses. The domestic sounds wrapped around him like a blanket, filling spaces in his heart he hadn't known were empty. Whatever happened tomorrow, whatever Sarah decided, Ethan knew with absolute certainty that his life had changed irrevocably. The man who had entered that grocery store days ago no longer existed. In his place was someone new, someone who had glimpsed a different kind of wealth and would never again be satisfied with the cold comfort of money alone. Morning light filtered through the windows, finding Ethan still in his chair outside the guest room. He hadn't slept much, his mind racing with concerns about Jake's appearance and what it might mean for Sarah and the children. More than once, he'd checked the security feeds, reassuring himself that the building remained secure. The door creaked open, and Emma's small face appeared. Seeing Ethan still at his post, she smiled with relief. "You really stayed all night," she whispered, stepping into the hallway in her oversized t-shirt nightgown. "I promised I would," Ethan replied, his voice rough from the sleepless night. Emma studied him with her solemn eyes. "No one ever keeps promises to us," she said matter-of-factly, "except Mum." The simple statement broke Ethan's heart a little. "I'll always keep my promises to you, Emma," he said, meaning it more than he'd meant anything in his life. She nodded, accepting his words with the beautiful trust of childhood. "Mum's still sleeping. She was crying last night after she thought I was asleep. Ethan's chest tightened. She's had a tough time. Because of Jake, Emma said, her face darkening. He made Mom sad all the time. He called her bad names and said I was a burden. Anger flared in Ethan at the thought of this child hearing such things. You're not a burden, Emma. You're a gift. She smiled shyly. That's what Mom always says. She hesitated, then asked, Can we make breakfast? I want to surprise Mom with pancakes. She loves pancakes, but she always gives the best ones to me and Noah. That sounds like a great idea, Ethan agreed, rising from the chair with stiff muscles. In the kitchen, they worked together, with Emma providing enthusiastic, if not entirely accurate instructions on pancake preparation. Noah woke during their cooking adventure and joined them, seated in his makeshift high chair, happily banging his rattle and babbling. He's saying he wants blueberries in his pancakes, Emma translated seriously. Is he now? Ethan played along, adding blueberries to the batter. Quite sophisticated for someone so young. Emma nodded sagely. Noah's very smart. Mum says he gets that from her side of the family. As they finished preparing breakfast, Sarah appeared in the doorway, her expression a mixture of surprise and something softer, more vulnerable. What's all this? She asked, taking in the scene. Ethan at the stove, Emma arranging flowers. She'd found in a vase Noah contentedly watching the activity. We made breakfast, Emma announced proudly, and Ethan only burned 2 pancakes. A new personal record, Ethan said with mock seriousness. Coffee? Sarah accepted the offered mug, her fingers brushing his in the exchange. You didn't have to do this. We wanted to, Ethan replied simply. Right, Emma. Right, the child agreed enthusiastically, and I set the table with the fancy napkins I found, and I put flowers in the middle because that's what they do in restaurants. Sarah smiled at her daughter's efforts. It looks beautiful, sweetie. As they ate breakfast together, Ethan couldn't help but notice how right it felt, the 4 of them around the table, sharing food and conversation. Emma chattered about her plans to draw with her new art supplies, while Noah methodically smashed bits of pancake before occasionally getting some into his mouth. It was the most ordinary of scenes, yet to Ethan it felt extraordinary. His entire adult life had been dedicated to the exceptional. Exceptional wealth, exceptional power, exceptional success. He'd never understood the beauty of the ordinary, of simple moments shared with people who genuinely cared for each other. You're staring, Sarah said quietly, bringing him back to the present. Sorry, he replied, not entirely repentant. It's just, I like having you all here. Sarah's expression grew serious. Ethan, about last night. I've been thinking about that, he interrupted gently. Jake knows you're here now. Going back to the bridge isn't safe. Fear flickered in Sarah's eyes. I know, she admitted, but we can't stay here indefinitely. Why not? The question slipped out before he could consider its implications. Sarah's eyebrows rose. Because this isn't real life, Ethan. This is a temporary bubble of luxury that we don't belong in. It could be real, he insisted. Not the luxury, that's just stuff. But this, he gestured to encompass the 4 of them, this could be real. Emma, who had been listening to the adult conversation with interest, piped up. I think it's already real. We're all here together, and it feels nice. Sarah's face softened at her daughter's words. It does feel nice, sweetie. But sometimes adults have to make hard decisions even when things feel nice. Like when we had to leave our apartment, Emma asked. Yes, like that. Emma considered this, then turned to Ethan with her characteristic directness. Do you want us to stay forever? The question hung in the air, loaded with implications that the child couldn't fully understand, but that the adults felt acutely. Ethan met Sarah's gaze over Emma's head, seeing the warning there, the fear that he might make promises that couldn't be kept. I would like that very much, Ethan said carefully, but it's not just my decision. It's Mom's too, Emma nodded, wisely. And she's scared because Jake found us. Sarah's face paled slightly. Emma, why don't you go get dressed? Your clothes from yesterday are clean and folded on the bed. Once Emma had left the kitchen, Sarah turned to Ethan. We need to be realistic, she said quietly. Last night proved that my past can find me anywhere. I won't put you in that position. What position? Protecting people I care about. Ethan shook his head. That's not a burden, Sarah. It's a privilege. You say that now, she replied, her voice tinged with sadness. But what happens when the novelty wears off? When you realize that you've taken on not just a woman with trust issues, but 2 children, an angry ex, and all the complications that come with a family that's been through trauma? Ethan considered her words carefully. Do you know what my life was like before I met you? He asked finally. Empty. Successful by every external measure, but utterly empty. I had no one who cared whether I came home at night. No one. Who looked at me the way Emma does, like I'm actually worth something beyond my bank account. That's not fair, Sarah protested. You're using my children's affection as leverage. I'm not, Ethan insisted. I'm trying to explain what's happened to me since that night in the grocery store. I've woken up, Sarah, to a life I didn't even know I was missing. Sarah's expression softened slightly. Ethan, I care about you, more than I should, considering how briefly we've known each other. But caring isn't enough to build a life on. Then, what is? He challenged gently. Reality, she replied firmly. Shared values, mutual respect. Understanding that love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice you make every day, even when it's hard. And you don't think I'm capable of that? Sarah hesitated. I think you haven't been tested. You've never had to choose someone else's needs over your own. You've never had to sacrifice anything that really mattered to you. Her words stung with their accuracy. Ethan had indeed lived a life largely free of sacrifice, where his own desires had always taken precedence. You're right, he acknowledged. I haven't been tested that way, but I want the chance to be. Before Sarah could respond, Ethan's phone rang, Victor's name flashing on the screen. With an apologetic glance at Sarah, he answered. This better be important, Victor. The Thompson deal is imploding, Victor's voice came through, tense and angry. They're walking unless you personally show up at their office in the next hour. And the board has called an emergency session for this afternoon. This is it, Ethan. Either you show up and prove you're still committed to this company, or they're voting you out. My sources are solid on this. Ethan glanced at Sarah, who was carefully avoiding his eyes as she cleaned up Noah's breakfast mess. I understand, he said into the phone. I'll be there. After hanging up, he explained the situation to Sarah. I have to go in. It's a crisis. She nodded, unsurprised. Of course, your work is important. But this conversation is more important. Ethan insisted. We'll continue it when I get back. There's nothing more to say, Sarah replied gently. You have your life, Ethan. It's a good life that you've worked hard for. We've already disrupted it enough. You haven't disrupted it, Ethan argued. You've improved it immeasurably. Sarah's smile was sad. Go save your company, we'll be fine. Reluctantly, Ethan prepared for work. His mind divided between the business crisis at hand and his fear that Sarah would be gone when he returned. As he was about to leave, Emma emerged from the bedroom, now dressed and clutching her new art supplies. Are you going to work? She asked, disappointment evident in her voice. Just for a little while, Ethan assured her, kneeling to her level. I'll be back as soon as I can. Emma studied him with those 2 wise eyes. Mum says we might have to leave today. Ethan's heart sank. Did she say where you might go? Emma shook her head. She was talking to someone on the phone about a shelter that takes families. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I don't want to go to a shelter. I want to stay here with you. Ethan pulled her into a gentle hug. I want that too, Emma, more than anything. Then why can't we? The simple question held all the straightforward logic of childhood, cutting through the adult complications to the heart of the matter. It's complicated, Ethan began, then stopped himself. Was it really? Or had he and Sarah both been making it more complicated than it needed to be? Actually, I don't think it has to be complicated at all. Sometimes adults forget that the simplest answer might be the right one. Emma nodded sagely. Mom says I make things simple because I see with my heart instead of my brain. Your mum is very wise, Ethan said, rising to his feet. I'll be back. As soon as I can, okay? In the meantime, maybe you could draw me a picture. I already did, Emma replied, pulling a folded paper from her pocket. It's us, all of us together. The crayon drawing showed 4 figures standing in front of what was clearly meant to be a building. Ethan, Sarah, Emma, and baby Noah, all holding hands, with exaggerated smiles on their faces. Above them, Emma had written in careful letters, "Our family." Something shifted in Ethan's chest as he stared at the simple drawing. With sudden clarity, he knew what he needed to do. "This is perfect, Emma," he said, carefully folding the drawing and placing it in his inside jacket pocket. "I'm going to keep it right here close to my heart." At the Thompson Corporation offices, Ethan moved through the crisis negotiations with a focus and determination that surprised even himself. Where once he might have employed manipulation and pressure tactics, he instead offered genuine solutions that benefited both parties. By the end of the meeting, not only was the deal salvaged, but it had been restructured in a way that promised greater long-term stability. "I don't understand," the Thompson CEO said as they shook hands. "Victor led us to believe you were checked out, that the company was in disarray." "Victor was mistaken," Ethan replied simply. "Some things in my life have changed, but my commitment to ethical business practices has only strengthened." From there, Ethan headed directly to the emergency board meeting where Victor was already holding court. The conversation abruptly halted when Ethan entered. "Gentlemen, ladies," Ethan greeted the board calmly, "I understand there are concerns about my leadership." Victor stepped forward. "The board deserves an explanation for your recent behavior." "Ethan, the missed meetings, the distraction, the sudden disinterest in deals you once would have fought tooth and nail for." "You're right," Ethan agreed, surprising everyone present. "You do deserve an explanation. The truth is, I've experienced a fundamental shift in perspective over the past week." He reached into his pocket and withdrew Emma's drawing, unfolding it carefully. "This might look like a child's drawing to you, and it is, but it's also a vision of something I never knew I wanted until I found it." The board members exchanged confused glances as Ethan continued. "For years, I've defined success by numbers on a balance sheet. I've pursued profit without considering the human cost. I've made decisions that were financially sound, but ethically questionable." He paused, looking directly at Victor. "And I've tolerated relationships based on mutual advantage rather than mutual respect." "What exactly are you saying?" Gerald Wilson asked, his brow furrowed. "I'm saying that I'm still fully committed to this company," Ethan replied, "but I'm committed to running it differently, more ethically, more humanely, with a recognition that our decisions affect real people with real lives." Victor scoffed. "This is exactly what I warned you about. He's gone soft, sentimental. This isn't the Ethan Collingsworth who built this company." "You're right," Ethan agreed calmly. "I'm not the same man. I'm better, stronger, clearer about what actually matters." He turned to address the full board. "If that's not the kind of leadership you want, then by all means vote me out. But before you do, consider this. Our client satisfaction is at an all-time high. Our ethical compliance ratings have never been better. And the Thompson deal that Victor claimed was imploding has just been successfully restructured with terms that benefit both parties for years to come." He placed Emma's drawing on the table. "I found a family this week. People who see me as a person, not a bank account or a power broker. And it's made me a better businessman, not a worse one, because now I understand what we're really building. Here, not just wealth, but a legacy that affects real lives." A profound silence fell over the boardroom. Gerald Wilson was the first to speak. "I knew your father well, Ethan," he said slowly. "He was brilliant, driven, successful, but he wasn't happy. I think he would be proud to see the man you're becoming." One by one, the board members expressed their support, with only Victor and his closest allies maintaining their opposition. By the end of the meeting, it was clear that Ethan's position was secure. As the room emptied, Victor approached, his expression tight with barely controlled anger. "This isn't over," he warned. "You're making a mistake, allowing personal feelings." to influence business decisions. No, Victor, Ethan replied calmly. The mistake was thinking that business could ever be truly separated from personal values. I won't make that error again. With a renewed sense of purpose, Ethan left the office, instructing his driver to take him home as quickly as possible. Throughout the ride, he rehearsed what he would say to Sarah, how he would convince her that what they had found together was worth building upon. But when the elevator doors opened to his penthouse, he was met with silence. No music played, no delicious smells came from the kitchen, no small voice called his name in excitement. Sarah, he called, moving through the quiet rooms with growing dread. Emma? The guest room was empty, the bed neatly made. Emma's art supplies were gone. Noah's makeshift high chair had been dismantled, the cushions returned to their original places. It was as if they had never been there at all. Ethan's heart sank as he realized they had left. Despite his promises to return, despite the connection they had formed, Sarah had chosen to leave rather than risk depending on someone else. As he stood in the empty guest room, a small white envelope on the pillow caught his eye. With trembling fingers, he opened it to find a note in Sarah's neat handwriting. Ethan, thank you for everything you've done for us. Your kindness has meant more than you can know. Emma wanted to wait for you, but I thought a clean break would be easier on everyone. We've taken nothing but what you specifically gave to the children. Please don't try to find us. This is for the best. Sarah. Beneath her signature, in crayon, Emma had added, I'll miss you. Love, Emma and Mr. Snuggles. Ethan sank onto the edge of the bed, the note clutched in his hand. The emptiness of the penthouse pressed in on him, more oppressive than it had ever been before. Now that he knew what it could feel like with life and laughter filling the spaces, the silence was unbearable. Without conscious decision, he found himself moving through the apartment, gathering his keys and coat. He would not accept this ending. He couldn't. The shelter under the bridge was empty. The makeshift home Sarah had created disassembled and gone. The grocery store owner hadn't seen them. The local shelters wouldn't confirm whether a woman with 2 children had checked in, citing privacy policies. For 3 days, Ethan searched, neglecting work and sleep in his determination to find them. He checked every shelter, every food bank, every public space where a homeless family might seek refuge. Nothing. On the 4th day, exhausted and heartsick, Ethan returned to his penthouse to find Victor waiting in the lobby. The board is concerned again, Victor said without preamble. You've missed 2 critical meetings. The Thompson deal needs final signatures. Whatever personal crisis you're having needs to end now, or everything we discussed last week becomes reality. Ethan regarded his partner with new clarity. You've been waiting for this opportunity for years, haven't you? A chance to push me out and take control. Victor didn't deny it. Business is business, Ethan. Nothing personal. That's where you're wrong, Ethan replied. It's all personal. Every decision, every deal, every dollar affects real people with real lives. He stepped closer, his voice lowering. Did you have something to do with Jake finding Sarah at my penthouse? Victor's slight flinch confirmed Ethan's suspicion. I may have mentioned to some contacts that you had visitors, he admitted. I needed you focused on business, not playing house with some homeless charity case. The confirmation of Victor's betrayal should have angered Ethan, but instead it brought clarity. You're fired, Victor, he said calmly. Effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building, and legal will be in touch regarding the breach of confidentiality and invasion of privacy you just admitted to. You can't do that, Victor sputtered. The board unanimously granted me authority to restructure leadership last week, Ethan interrupted. You were too busy plotting my downfall to pay attention to the fine print. As security led a protesting Victor away, Ethan's phone rang, an unknown number. His heart raced as he answered, hoping against hope. Is this Ethan Collingsworth? An unfamiliar female voice asked. Yes, he confirmed, trying to hide his disappointment. This is Marjorie Wilson at First Step Shelter. I have a young lady here named Emma who has been very insistent that I call you. She says you promised to read her more stories, and you always keep your promises. Relief washed over Ethan like a wave. Is her mother there? Sarah? Yes. But she doesn't know I'm calling. Emma was quite determined, though. Said you needed to know where they were because you're family. Where are you located? Ethan asked, already moving toward the exit. 20 minutes later, Ethan arrived at the shelter, a nondescript building in a neighborhood he rarely visited. Inside, the facilities were clean but institutional, with shared dormitories and common areas that offered basic necessities but little privacy or comfort. He found them in the common room, Sarah sitting at a table filling out job applications, Noah in a shelter-provided playpen, and Emma drawing intently with the art supplies he had given her. It was Emma who spotted him first, her face lighting up with joy. "Ethan!" she cried, jumping up from her chair and running to him. "You found us! I knew you would!" At Emma's exclamation, Sarah's head snapped up, her expression cycling rapidly, through shock, anger, and something that looked suspiciously like relief before settling on guarded neutrality. "Emma, did you call him?" she asked, her voice carefully controlled. Emma looked down, scuffing her shoe against the floor. "Maybe. Marjorie helped me. But only because you were crying last night when you thought I was asleep." Again. Sarah's cheeks flushed. "Emma, that was private." "But you miss him," Emma insisted. "And he misses us. I can tell." "She's right," Ethan said, approaching the table slowly, giving Sarah space to process his arrival. "I've been looking everywhere for you." "I asked you not to," Sarah reminded him, though there was less conviction in her voice than her words suggested. "I know. I'm not very good at following rules that don't make sense." Ethan sat down across from her. "Sarah, please come home." "We don't have a home," she replied quietly. "That's the point." "Yes, you do," Ethan insisted. "With me, if you want it." Sarah shook her head, though the gesture seemed more helpless than negative. "Ethan, nothing has changed. We're still from different worlds. You still have a life and a career that don't include a ready-made family with all our baggage." "Everything has changed," Ethan countered. "I've changed. My priorities have changed." He reached across the table, not quite touching her, but offering his hand. "And my life and career mean nothing if they don't include you three." Emma, who had been listening intently, suddenly piped up. "Mom, remember when you told me that home isn't a place? You said home is where people love each other and take care of each other." Sarah's eyes glistened as she looked at her daughter. "I did say that, didn't I?" "And Ethan loves us," Emma continued, with the absolute certainty of childhood. "And we love him, so that means we're already home when we're together." Sarah looked from her daughter to Ethan, her defenses visibly crumbling. "It's not that simple, Emma." "It is that simple," Ethan said softly. "Emma's right. Love is what makes a home, not walls or furniture or an address. And I do love you, all of you, more than I thought possible." Sarah's breath caught at his declaration. "You can't know that yet. It's too soon. Some people search their whole lives and never find what I found the moment I saw Emma in that grocery store," Ethan replied. "A chance to be part of something real, a family. And what about your company, your board, your life?" "The company will continue. The board is behind me. And my life—" Ethan smiled gently. "My life was empty until you filled it. I had success, but no joy. Achievement, but no purpose. Everything I own means nothing compared to what I found with you." Sarah's resistance was weakening. He could see it in her eyes. "And Jake?" she asked quietly. "He won't just disappear." "Victor was the one who told him where to find you," Ethan revealed. "And Victor is no longer a problem. As for Jake, there are legal ways to ensure he stays away. Ways that don't involve social services or risk to your custody." Hope flickered in Sarah's eyes for the first time. "You've thought this through." "I've thought of nothing else for days," Ethan admitted. "Sarah, I'm not asking you to depend on me. I'm asking for the chance to build something together, as equals. You and the children have given me more than I could ever give you. A reason to live fully, not just exist." Emma, who had been following the conversation intently, suddenly asked, "Does this mean we can go home to the castle in the sky?" Ethan kept his eyes on Sarah. "That's up to your mom." Sarah looked from Ethan to Emma to Noah, who was babbling happily in his playpen, seemingly aware that something important was happening. The internal struggle was visible on her face, fear warring with hope, doubt with trust. "I'm scared," she admitted finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "So am I," Ethan replied honestly. "I've never been a partner or a father figure. Before, I'll make mistakes, but I promise to learn, to listen, to grow, together." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, then asked, "What happens when the novelty wears off? When real life sets in? When you realize that love isn't always easy or convenient?" "Then we work through it," Ethan said simply. "Day by day. That's what families do." Emma, sensing the gravity of the moment, slipped her small hand into her mother's. "Please, Mom, I want to go home with Ethan." Sarah looked down at her daughter, then across at Ethan, her expression softening. "You really think we can make this work, despite everything?" "I know we can," Ethan replied with quiet certainty, "but only if you want it too." Sarah took a deep breath, then slowly, deliberately placed her hand in Ethan's outstretched one. "Okay," she said softly. "We'll try. Together." Emma's cheer of delight echoed through the shelter common room, causing several heads to turn. "We're going home," she announced to everyone within earshot. "To our real home." As they gathered their few belongings, Ethan watched Sarah move. With new purpose, her earlier defeat replaced by cautious hope. He understood the gift she was giving him, her trust, despite every reason experience had given her to withhold it. Outside, as they walked toward his waiting car, Emma skipping ahead with Mr. Snuggles, Sarah paused, turning to face Ethan. "I need you to know something," she said quietly. "If this is going to work, it has to be real. No fairy tale endings, just real people trying their best every day." "That's exactly what I want," Ethan assured her, gently adjusting Noah in his arms. "Real life, with all its complications and challenges and incredible moments of joy." Sarah studied his face, then nodded, seemingly satisfied with what she saw there. "Then there's something else you should know," she said, a small smile playing at her lips. "I might be falling in love with you, too." The admission, so simply stated yet so profound, filled Ethan's heart to overflowing. "Good," he replied, his voice rough with emotion. "Because this family needs all the love it can get." Emma called to them from the car, impatient to begin their new life together. As they walked forward to join her, Sarah's hand found Ethan's, their fingers intertwining with the natural ease of pieces finding their proper fit. In that moment, Ethan understood with perfect clarity what true wealth really meant. Not the cold numbers in his bank accounts or the empty grandeur of his possessions, but the warm weight of Noah in his arms, the feel of Sarah's hand in his, and Emma's bright voice calling him home. He had spent his life building an empire of material success, never realizing that the real treasure had been waiting in a grocery store on a cold winter night, a family that saw him not for what he owned, but for who he could become with them by his side. As they drove away from the shelter toward home, their home, Ethan silently thanked whatever twist of fate had led him to that grocery store on that particular night. His life would never be the same, and for that he was profoundly grateful. The penthouse that had once echoed with emptiness would now overflow with life. The walls that had witnessed only solitude would now contain laughter, tears, arguments, reconciliations, all the messy, beautiful reality of family life. And Ethan